Hello students, how are you all doing? I hope everybody is having a good day so far. It's fantastic and wonderful to have all of you in today's session once again. So, how are you all doing? Everything going good? Huh? Yes. Fantastic. It's really great. So, students, this is Pratibha. I am your senior biology teacher. In today's discussion, we shall be understanding regarding the concept of respiration. And the respiration concept will be under the main heading of what? The life processes. Yes. So if you are having any kind of questions or any queries, or if you wanted to know more details about the concept, you can please feel free to reach out to us. So do comment within the comment box, within the chat section, and we should be waiting for a few more minutes, okay? I could see most of you are joining, but let's wait for a few more minutes for others to join, and then let's get started with today's discussion, okay? So before going on, do you all remember what was the concept that we dealt previously? We understood about the introduction to the life process, right? Yes, most of you are there. Yes, so in today's discussion, we are going to understand about the concept of respiration. I want every one of you to please place a notebook and pen along by your side so that whenever we are having discussion of the concept, please try to make a note of the important points. So students, yeah, I could see. Yes. I could see most of you are joining now. Let's get started in today's discussion. The life processes. Majorly, we shall be focusing on the concept of respiration. The first topic will be the concept of nutrition. After nutrition, we have the respiration. So the topics that we are going to cover in today's discussion will be about the respiration, ATP and the uses of it, regarding the glycolysis process, a brief, okay, not completely, uh, breakdown of glucose by various pathways. Later on, we will be understanding about respiration plants, animals. In animals, humans are very important. Since humans are very important, we shall be dealing with the human respiratory system and the pathway of air that is associated with respect to the human respiratory system. And we shall understand about the gaseous exchange in lungs, followed by the transport of gases. So this is all what we are going to deal with in today's discussion. Are you all ready? Yes? Huh. So coming to the concept of respiration, actually, when we are discussing about the life processes, we understood nutrition, respiration, transportation, excretion are vital for the survival of the living organism. Do you all remember? I hope you remember. So there we have got to know the cells, the living organisms require energy for what? For carrying out various growth and developmental activities. So from where we are going to get the energy? Of course, from the food we take, from the nourishment that we take. Yes, so the respiration where the cells are going to get the energy, but how do the cell get the energy? From food. Wow, we have various wide variety kinds of food items in this living world, in the biological system, starting from simple unicellular organism to complex multicellular organism. The living world has a lot of diversified food habits, but at the same time, the food habit they are maintaining is for them to get the energy, and the energy being utilized for carrying out various activities within the lifetime of a living organism. Now coming to how cells get the energy, from where the cells are going to get energy? From the food. So what does the food do? The food is trying to release energy, and this energy is being used for carrying out various life activities and for the production of new cells, for the repair of any kind of damaged tissue also. We require the energy. And from where we are getting the energy? From the food that we are taking. Okay, before we move on, I have a question for all of you. So, talking about the concept of respiration, do you think breathing and respiration both are inferring to the same meaning, or do you think both are different words? Think of it. Later, I shall explain you. So, why do we need oxygen? Why all the living organisms require oxygen? Do you remember in the photosynthesis concept we have seen the living organism, the plant, prepare its own food, releases the oxygen. So oxygen is essential for the survival of the living organism, right? Even we require the food. But why do we need the oxygen exactly? The oxygen is responsible for breakdown of the glucose so that there is a release of energy. So oxygen reacts with the glucose, causes the breakdown of the glucose so that there is a energy liberation. The energy which is being released during the process of breakdown of the glucose is now getting stored in the form of ATP, nothing but the adenosine triphosphate, the energy currency of the cell. Okay, moving on. We have this notion of respiration. We always think respiration means to respire, means to breathe. But respiration is a broader term that is involving breathing as well as the cellular respiration. So what does respiration actually gives us? It is the biological process where the food is getting broken down. So with respect to the food, for suppose we are taking the food, it is getting digested. Let's take the simple form of a carbohydrate, nothing but the glucose. Okay, we have the glucose. Now, the glucose is getting broken down and there is an energy release. So, why energy is utilized? For what purposes we are utilizing energy? For carrying out various growth developmental activities. Na? Huh. So, we can find the cellular respiration is a process where the body is utilizing the oxygen for breakdown of the glucose for the release of energy. Of course, the energy gets stored in the form of the ATP, the energy currency. So, how respiration works? What does the term respiration have in elaboration? It have two things, two parameters associated with it. One is the breathing, which is a physical process, and second one is the cellular respiration, which is nothing but a chemical process. Okay, under the respiration, the broader term, we are having further two more terms: the breathing, the physical process, and cellular respiration, which is a chemical process. Okay, now coming to the breathing. Breathing, as I have told you, this is a physical process. So what we can say? Taking the oxygen rich air, giving out the carbon dioxide rich air. What it is? The inhalation and exhalation. Taking in the oxygen is inhalation and giving out the carbon dioxide is exhalation. So what does breathing correspond where? It corresponds for both inhalation as well as the exhalation. Okay. Now coming to the cellular respiration. What does the cellular respiration include? It is the process where there is a chemical breakdown of glucose. Either it might occur in presence of oxygen or in the absence of oxygen. The whole and sole purpose of it is the energy release. So along with energy, as we have seen in the photosynthesis, oxygen is a byproduct. Here, with respect to the cellular respiration, carbon dioxide and water are released. Now, do you understand? Now, did you get the idea? We are exhaling the carbon dioxide chair. From where we are getting the carbon dioxide? Inside our biological systems, because of the glucose breakdown, carbon dioxide is getting released and this should be eliminated out. Okay, got the point, everyone? Yes. So give me a movement. Let me check the chat over here. Yeah, I could see one of you have asked regarding inhalation and exhalation. Dear, I have told you about the same. Inhalation corresponds for taking the oxygen rich air, and exhalation corresponds for releasing the or expelling the carbon dioxide rich air from the lungs. Okay. Now, differences between breathing and cellular respiration. Now I'm going to tell you what might be the difference. So the feature over here, type of process, where it is occurring, the purpose of it, what it is involving, and energy release. Yes, just now one of you have asked inhalation and exhalation. Here we have got it. So in the breathing process, which is a physical or mechanical process, the lungs are being involved where there is gaseous exchange. The entry of oxygen, the exit of carbon dioxide will be there. So the same thing, inhalation means entry of oxygen, exhalation means exit of carbon dioxide. This is only based upon the diffusion gradient. Okay, there is no energy release over here. But coming to the cellular respiration, of course, we knew it is involving the breakdown of the glucose. It is a biological or chemical process where the cells are being involved. That's why we are mentioning the term cellular respiration. So here the gaseous exchange will be the main purpose of breathing, but the cellular respiration, the main purpose will be the release of energy, where there is a breakdown of glucose for the release of energy. So it is involving the glucose breakdown. Yes, we can say the energy is released. Now my question, we are saying energy is released, but in which form it is getting stored? Remember, I have given this hint already. In which form? In the ATP form, adenosine triphosphate. Half the ATP is being formed. Adenosine triphosphate means three phosphate groups, right? So they are connected by some bonds, and bonds are very high energy bonds. So how ATP is being formed? ADP, which corresponds for adenosine diphosphate, plus inorganic phosphate. We generally represent inorganic phosphate as Pi, okay, the smaller one, plus energy. All of these, here we could find the ATP is getting formed by a combination of adenosine triphosphate plus inorganic phosphate. For this combination to occur, high amount of energy is being utilized, so that ATP is now formed. When we require energy for anything, for any kind of body activity, the ATP will now be broken. Okay, so the ATP is broken now. We knew the bond over here with which it is getting formed requires high energy. The same thing, when that is getting broken, the energy release will be there. ATP breaks, gives ADP plus phosphate plus energy. Okay, so that's the reason we can say how ATP is working. It is like a rechargeable energy unit. When we are requiring the energy, the ATP, the last phosphate bond present within the ATP, it gets broken so that there is a energy release. And approximately we can say that 30.5 kilojoules per mole of energy will be released by breakdown of ATP to give energy. So what are the uses of ATP then? There should be something used. Now we cannot simply say that it is a energy currency, it is an energy unit. There should be some uses. So what are the uses of it? It is providing energy for various activities. It might be anything. We are running, walking, jogging, cycling, everything, every movement requires the energy. So movement of body parts for the formation of new substances. It might be carbohydrate, fats, or proteins, or enzymes. Remember the assimilation step in digestive system we have known now. So for all those processes, the ATP is being required. And for the signal transmission through the nerve impulses, we could see there is a requirement of ATP. Apart from this, it is also used for the movement or the transport of the substances, for the active transport of the substances across the membranes. For suppose We have the plant roots. In the plant roots, the mineral movement should be there. Do you remember in the previous nutrition discussion, we have known nitrogen, phosphorus, magnesium, all these things the plant is requiring. So the plant the plant roots will be having the uptake of minerals. Yes, so far what we are understanding, we understood about the respiration, the term of it, what it exactly gives us, and what are the sub things under it, the breathing and the cellular respiration. Okay, so cellular respiration is where there is a breakdown of glucose. But how the glucose is getting broken down, how the glucose is oxidized to produce energy. Do remember, students, this is much important concept. So the glucose, it is a 6 carbon molecule. Let's go back to a bit of chemistry in biology. It will be interesting now. So glucose, which is a 6 carbon molecule, it gets converted into a 3 carbon molecule, that is a pyruvate. Okay, now the fate of pyruvate depends upon the availability of oxygen. If oxygen is available, it gives the aerobic respiration, where glucose getting broken down into pyruvate. Now, the pyruvate further breaks, gives the energy. Along with energy, carbon dioxide and water release will be there. Now, in the cases of absence or lack of availability of the oxygen, there comes the anaerobic respiration, where the end product is not so simple as that of aerobic. Okay, it might be ethanol, it might be an alcohol, or it might be lactic acid. I'll be discussing regarding that also. So in the glycolysis process, nothing but the first process where there is a breakdown of glucose to pyruvate will be there, na? That is called as glycolysis. So there is a breakdown of glucose to pyruvate which occurs in the cytoplasm, and particularly this step is not having any requirement of oxygen. It occurs in the cytoplasm and it is not requiring any oxygen. Here we have seen one molecule of glucose gets converted into two molecules of pyruvate. Glucose is a 6 carbon molecule. One molecule gets broken down into two molecules of a 3 carbon molecule, that is a pyruvate. Now the fate of pyruvate depends on what? Based upon the availability of the oxygen. Okay, so the pyruvate breakdown process. Now it is being dependent in two ways, depending upon oxygen availability. What are they? Aerobic or anaerobic. Now, first scenario, in case of aerobic respiration, which occurs in the presence of oxygen. So if there is abundant supply of oxygen to vessels, the glucose in the presence of oxygen will be getting broken down to give carbon dioxide, water and energy. The energy getting stored in the form of ATP. Again, whenever the cell require, there is a utilization of the ATP. Now, coming to the anaerobic respiration. Anaerobic respiration, do you think it occurs with oxygen? Of course, no, right? It is in the absence of oxygen. Oxygen will not be utilized over here in the lack or absence of oxygen conditions. We can say inside the mitochondria, it is occurring, particularly the anaerobic one. Okay, so here the pyruvate is not getting broken down into simple things. In case of anaerobic, I am discussing about the pyruvate. Here in case of aerobic, we can say that simply carbon dioxide, energy and water will be released. In case of anaerobic, depending upon the living organism, if it is yeast, the fermentation procedure gets carried on, ethanol will be the one which is getting produced. Okay, if it is a human muscle cells, when we are performing heavy activities, you know, sometimes we do running, cycling, jogging or heavy exercises, we are going to get muscle pain. Why we are getting? Because There, due to lack of availability of the oxygen, the muscle cells, instead of going for aerobic respirations, they will be getting switched to anaerobic conditions, because of which lactic acid comes, lactic acid gets accumulated, which results in the muscle pain. Okay, so with respect to the aerobic, where it is happening inside the mitochondria. So the pyruvate here is getting broken down into carbon dioxide energy, along with energy water release will be there. Okay, so whereas in anaerobic respiration, which occurs without the oxygen, in yeast this is acrid. So here what happens, the glucose cannot be completely broken, it gets partially broken, means the pyruvate, the carbon molecule will be there, na? So it is getting broken down into alcohol and carbon dioxide. Here the ATP will be produced. Of course, we cannot say that it is not going to get produced. It will be produced, but it will be very little ATP when compared with that of the aerobic respiration. The glucose gives the ethanol in yeast, alcohol and carbon dioxide along with that energy, but energy is less when compared with that of the aerobic respiration. Okay, now pyruvate in case of anaerobic respiration, in the absence of oxygen, in is the fermentation process happening. So what will be the byproduct? The two carbon compound ethanol being produced along with carbon dioxide and energy. So this fermentation we are using in some areas now. Do you all remember? Go back to your grade 8s again. There you have understood about microorganisms. There you will be seeing this applicability of the concept for the preparation of bread. The dough, it gets mixed with yeast, so that during anaerobic respiration there is a creation of carbon dioxide. The carbon dioxide creates the packets, the air packets, which increases the texture, size of the dough, size of the bread. In fact, the ethanol eventually gets evaporated when baking is being done. Huh. So we can say the anaerobic conditions are giving very little energy when compared with that of the aerobic condition. So human muscle cells, the thing that I have got in us also, whenever we are going for intense activities, intense exercises, we will not be able to have much oxygen availability, because of which the glucose here now gets broken into the lactic acid. The lactic acid accumulation creates a muscle sprains. Okay, and we are of course definitely using the hot pack, something like that, so that there is a relief, and energy will also be less when compared with that of the aerobic conditions. So in the lack of oxygen conditions, the pyruvate gets broken down into lactic acid and energy with respect to the muscle cells in humans, particularly when we are going for high exercises. Okay, now the breakdown of glucose by various pathways. So initially what happens, glucose is a 6 carbon molecule, the simplest form of carbohydrate. In cytoplasm it gets broken down to give pyruvate, which is a 3 carbon molecule. Along with it energy is being released. Now, the fate of pyruvic acid depends upon the availability of the oxygen. If oxygen is available in mitochondria, there is a conversion of pyruvate to carbon dioxide, along with carbon dioxide, water and energy as usual. But in the absence or lack of oxygen conditions, in the absence of oxygen in yeast, ethanol, which is a 2 carbon molecule getting produced, along with that carbon dioxide energy are in common. In the lack of oxygen conditions, in the muscle cells of humans, when we are doing heavy activities, the lactic acid getting accumulated, which is a 3 carbon molecule. Remember, ethanol and lactic acid, there is a difference. Okay, but the energy production will be very less when compared with that of the aerobic condition. Are you clear, everyone? Are you clear? Yeah, give me a moment. Let me check if any question. Okay, I could see Again, you were asking the same thing. The difference between aerobic and anaerobic respiration. Yes, I'm trying to tell you the same thing. Aerobic respiration is the one which occurs in the presence of oxygen, where the glucose is getting broken down to give the carbon dioxide, water, and energy, and it is occurring in the mitochondria in the presence of oxygen condition. Anaerobic respiration is where there is either absence of oxygen or lack of availability of the oxygen. Based upon the organisms, the end products may differ. If it is yeast, ethanol is a product. If it is a muscle cell of human, lactic acid is a product. I hope you are clear with it. Yes. So far we are into the conceptual discussion of aerobic and anaerobic respiration. Now, is it good enough if we discuss only about human beings or animals? We have to also discuss about the plants. So let's discuss about the respiration in plants. And the plants are depending upon the diffusion. Recall the diffusion. What is diffusion? It is the process of movement of substances from a region of the higher concentration to a region of lower concentration. So respiration plants, where plants depend upon the diffusion for the gaseous exchange. And can you tell me in leaf how this diffusion is occurring, with the help of which pore? Of course, you got the answer. Yes. So coming to the respiration plants, we have it under three categories: the stems, the leaves, and the roots. Okay. So let's see how the respiration is getting carried out. In the leaf, there are minute pores which are called as the stomatal pores, which are present on the surface of the leaf. These are being guarded by whom? The kidney shaped cells, which are nothing but the guard cells. In the nutrition chapter, we have seen when the water flows, what happens when the water comes out, what will be the fate of the guard cells. All this we have discussed, right? Now, oxygen from the air is entering the leaf through whom? Through the stomatal pore, and it is reaching the leaf cells for what? For cellular respiration to occur. Of course, the plants, they also require the oxygen. They will also be releasing the carbon dioxide. You might have a question like, what is happening with photosynthesis? In photosynthesis, they will be utilizing the carbon dioxide, they will be releasing the oxygen, but they are also living organisms. Not only the preparation of the food, they also need to carry out the cellular respiration for grabbing energy, so that they are also carrying the growth and developmental activities. So oxygen from the air, it is entering the leaf through the stomata and it is reaching the leaf cell. Now at the same time, during the respiration, cellular respiration I'm talking about, there is a production of the carbon dioxide that should come through the same stomatal pores out of the leaf. So in plants, with respect to the leaf, two scenarios will be happening, one during the daytime and one during the night time. So during the daytime, when your photosynthesis and respiration both are happening, photosynthesis requires sunlight. So there is a utilization of carbon dioxide, release of oxygen, whereas in case of respiration, it occurs during the day and during the night time. Okay, so what will be there in respiration? There is a utilization of oxygen and there is a release of the carbon dioxide. Don't think that plant is going to perform only photosynthesis. It also requires the energy. It should also grow. Small baby plant also should grow to big adult plant now. As small baby is growing as a big human being, the same scenario, energy requirement will also be there for the plants. So respiration plants, particularly stems, it is depending upon the type of the plant. If it is a herbaceous plant or if it is a woody plant and tree. So if it is a herbaceous plant, if it is soft plant like the one mint, spinach or leafy vegetable, we have that, right? Soft, nice, showy stems. So they will be having the stomata on their stems, which helps for respiration, for the gaseous exchange. If it is a woody plant and tree, it is having a hard outer covering, the bark. The bark, of course, have many advantages like the cinnamon bark, cinchona bark, anti-malarial. Huh. So they do not contain the stomata. Instead, they will be having minute openings called as lenticles. These are the lenticles, and with the help of lenticles only, there will be gaseous exchange. Now, coming to the roots. Observe the root. Okay, the soil will be there around the root. The soil will be containing tiny spaces, particularly the ones which are filled with air. The oxygen being present within the air, we can say that it is now entering in the roots. As the same way oxygen is entering, the same way carbon dioxide is getting exited. So the outer surface of the root are also characterized by having tiny hair-like structures which are called as a root hairs. So oxygen from the soil air, it is undergoing diffusion into whom? Into the root hair, and it is reaching the root cells. The same scenario, carbon dioxide exit will be in the opposite manner. So inside the root cells, oxygen getting utilized for cellular respiration, and what is getting produced? Carbon dioxide is getting produced. There is a process of diffusion. The carbon dioxide is following so that there will be entry of carbon dioxide back into the soil. Are you getting the point? Everybody, are you here? Okay, let's take a pause for a minute. Let me have some water and I shall be back. Please wait for a moment. So thank you so much, students, for giving the movement so that I can have some water, regain my energy back, and continue the topic of discussion. Yes, thank you. So, so far we have been understanding about the respiration in plants. Do you all agree? We started with breathing and respiration. We started with the differences between them. We understood what will be the difference, and then followed by ATP, the uses of ATP, and then we have understood what else regarding the process of cellular respiration, types of respiration, and respiration in plants. Now it's time for us to understand about the respiration in animals. Okay, so some living organisms, let's take the small, minute, unicellular organisms. They have the single cell which performs all the activities. So, do you think only the simple parameter, or let's take example, only the diffusion can alone be sufficient for a multicellular organism with larger complexity to undergo respiration or the process of breathing? Do you think this is possible with respect to complicated living organism like human? No. The answer will be a definite no. So based upon the living organism, based upon their structural complexity, based upon the habitats they are in, based upon the type of surroundings they choose, the food have, everything will be determining the respiration on the process of breathing. Remember, when I'm using the broad elaborative term, it involves the breathing and the cellular respiration. Don't see them as a separate. Okay, so coming to the respiration with respect to animals. Give me a moment, let me check if any questions. Okay, I could see a lot of questions, but I am picking only a few important ones. Okay. Okay, I could see a question. What are the cells that are surrounding the stomata? They are nothing but the guard cells, the modified cells, the modified epidermal cells present in the leaf. Okay, they are the kidney shaped ones, guard cells. Okay, so coming to the respiration in animals, different animals, they are having different organs for the respiration. We cannot deny that. Based upon what? Based upon where they are living, based upon the structural complexity, like how the bodies are being built, based upon these parameters. So we have the paramecia, which is a unicellular organism. They will be following the process of simple diffusion. Simple diffusion, can it be alone enough with respect to complex natures, complex multicellular organisms? No, this cannot be. So let's take few more examples of respiration in animals. We have the earthworm, the friends of farmers. Okay, so what do earthworms do? They tend to breathe through their moist skin, and we are going to call it as a cutaneous respiration. Oxygen entry, carbon dioxide exit will be with the help of what? Will be with the help of their moist skin. And what else we have? We have the insect respiratory system. Respiratory system with respect to grasshoppers, ants, or butterflies, they will be having their tiny openings on the surface of the body, which is called as a spiracles. These spiracles will be opening up into a network of tubes which are called as a tracheae. Even we can see them in cockroaches also. Don't get afraid of cockroaches. If you try to see a cockroach, don't jump out of that place, okay? And at the same time, please don't try to kill it. So, enough coming back to the concept. I'm just joking. Just coming back to the concept, the insect respiratory system, the insects like grasshoppers, ants, and butterflies, they will be breathing through tiny openings present on the body, and what we are calling them as, we can call it as a spiracle. So these spiracle, they are getting connected by a network of air tubes, and we are calling it as a trachea. So there will be oxygen entry and carbon dioxide exit over here directly. Okay. So this is about the insects. And when we move forward, the bird respiratory system with respect to reptiles, birds, or mammals, turtles, pigeons, storks, or human beings, everything, even including the frog, we will be having the basic version of lungs. Our respiratory organ is lung. Okay, so we have amphibians. Amphibians like frog, just now I described, it have lungs. Then again, why this have come over here? You know, frog is having a special capacity. What it does, it not only respires through the lungs, it have the moist skin. Since it is an amphibian, means it can live both on the land and in the water, right? When it is inside the water, it is utilizing the skin, and when it is on the land, the basic version of lungs is helping our frog over here. So coming to the aquatic animals, the fishes. Okay, so aquatic animals, crabs, we also have clams, everything, whatever the one which require water as its habitat, they have the gills. So what does a gill do? We knew in water the oxygen is being present in a dissolved form. So the gills are going to absorb the oxygen dissolved in water, and it is removing the carbon dioxide. So this is a fish with gills. Remember, the gills are richly supplied with blood vessel. So the aquatic animals, their breathing rate should be faster when compared with that of the land animals. Why? Why do you think? Why? Because the oxygen in water is in dissolved form, but we in the atmosphere have abundance of availability of oxygen. That's the reason the aquatic animals needs to breathe faster, so that they are going to get enough oxygen and they are going to survive. Okay. Now, what does the fish do? The fish will be drawing the water in the mouth and it is pushing through gills. We know the gills are richly supplied with the blood vessels. So the gills contains the blood vessels, and what does it do? It is taking or showing an absorption of dissolved oxygen from the water. At the same time, because of cellular respiration, carbon dioxide is also getting produced as a byproduct, and the carbon dioxide will be getting eliminated out in the same opposite pathway. Okay. Now, what does the land animals do now? In case of land animals, we have the oxygen. Particularly for respiration, there is a atmosphere for us, which is a mixture of gases. Abundance of oxygen is very good in case of land animal, and we are having the lungs. And in case of insects, grasshoppers, insects, we have seen, right? They have the tracheae, so that the lungs or the tracheae are absorbing the oxygen. And one more thing, one more speciality about the organs over here. They are characterized by the presence of a large surface area. So that large surface area corresponds for more oxygen entry. The diffusion of oxygen will be more. Remember, in the villi, where we have seen villi, small intestinal absorption area is villi, which increases the surface area for absorption. Now, what these organs have? The organs have larger surface area. There it is for the absorption of food. Here it is for taking up, for grabbing more amount of oxygen. So the surface where oxygen and carbon dioxide gaseous exchange is happening, it is very thin, very delicate. So that is the reason we are having the lungs or whatever the organs that living organisms have. They are located inside the body for preventing the further damage. Okay. So to reach the sensitive area, we could find there are passageways like the windpipe and the bronchi. Let me tell you over here. Okay, let me brief you. Here we have alveoli with respect to the humans, where exactly gaseous exchange occurs. Alveoli are very thin, very delicate, and very sensitive. Okay, so we can see in order to reach the alveoli, the track, the pathway will be through the sensitive windpipe and then the bronchi and then the alveoli. To reach, we have to cross all these. So land animals have the ribs and the diaphragm, which gives the breathing movements. So that will be helpful for inhalation, exhalation, moving of air in and moving of air out of the lungs. Now, the same thing, the respiration in animals, I have put it in our tabular form again so that it helps us in our understanding. So, cutaneous is a type of respiration. The body structure used is skin. Earthworm, frog, we have the cutaneous respiration. Tracheal respiration is where there is a use of trachea. The cockroaches, the grasshoppers are good examples. Branchial respiration is the respiration through the gills. The fish, crabs, clams, tadpoles are the good examples. Pulmonary respiration is the respiration through the lungs. Humans, birds, reptiles, all these will be coming under the pulmonary respiration. Got it, everyone? Yes. Can we move forward? Are you ready for some more concept? Energetic? If you're energetic, give a thumbs up. So far we have been understanding about the respiration in animals. Now it's time for us to understand about the human respiratory system. So, the human respiratory system starts with a pair of nostrils followed by the nasal cavity. Then there is a pharynx, which is a common passageway for both food as well as the air. The larynx. The larynx enters, gives the windpipe. Trachea. Trachea have C-shaped cartilaginous strings which prevents the collapsing of the wall. The trachea bifurcate, divide, enter into each of the lung and gives bronchi. Bronchi will be branching. Further branching gives the bronchiole. Bronchiole gives the alveoli. This is what I'm trying to tell you. The alveoli is very thin, very delicate. So in order to reach the alveoli, what is the pathway that we need to go? Nasal cavity, followed by pharynx, and then we have trachea, bronchi, bronchioles, and then alveoli. So the alveoli around them are having a network of capillaries where exactly the one cell thick capillary is where the diffusion of gases will be occurring. Okay. Now coming to the human respiratory system, what will be the function of human respiratory system? It is inhalation and exhalation. As we knew, it is the process of taking the oxygen rich air and removal of carbon dioxide rich air. So the human respiratory system comprises of organs that helps us to do so, taking of oxygen or removal of the carbon dioxide. Nothing but in simple terms we can say inhalation and exhalation. So what does it help with? Only breathing, only cellular respiration? No, right? It also helps us to speak and to supply the energy. How? The cellular respiration is happening. The oxygen transportation should be done. Oxygen is not being utilized. It is reaching the cells. Glucose breakdown is happening and there is a release of energy. Okay, so the human respiratory system, the main parts include a pair of nostrils followed by nasal cavity. Then there is a pharynx, which is a common passageway for both food as well as the air. Then there is larynx, the trachea. Trachea enters into the lung, the main respiratory organ, and bifurcate, give bronchi. Bronchi end up in bronchioles. Bronchioles divide and give alveoli. And the main respiratory organ, obviously we have known it is the lung. Apart from this, we have the ribs, the diaphragm, and the intercostal muscles, which help in the process of breathing. What they will be doing? They will be trying to give the breathing movements. Okay, got it, everyone? Now, the main parts, what they tend to include, as I have been telling you, nostrils. The pathway of the air will be like this: from nostrils to nasal cavity, from there to pharynx, pharynx to larynx, larynx otherwise known as voice box. When air is moving through the vocal cord, the production of sound will be there. Trachea, trachea into bronchi inside the lungs, bronchi to bronchioles, bronchioles to alveoli, all this will be there inside the lungs only. Okay. Now, the human respiratory system. We knew the human respiratory system comprising of a pair of nostrils. So, whenever there is a entry of the air is now entering through the nostrils. So, we are having hair and mucus. So, what does this do? It filters the dust, microbes, and it is also warming and moistening the air. Okay. Apart from this, how will be the pathway of the air? The air first enters the nostrils, then later it enters the nasal cavity. So in the nasal cavity, there will be further mucus and tiny hair-like structures called as cilia, which will be trapping the dirt particles. And now, since it is trapping the dirt particle, the air is now reaching the body temperature. The clean air is now finally reaching home. The clean air is now reaching the lungs. Okay, so now pharynx. I have been always telling this now. This is a common passageway. It is like a short muscular passage. It is guiding the air into the windpipe. And here we have epiglottis. It prevents the entry of the food into the windpipe. Trachea is nothing but the windpipe. Esophagus is the food pipe. Okay. Now, larynx. Larynx, otherwise known as voice box. So, it is producing the sound when there is a passage of air through the vocal cord. When air is getting passed through the vocal cord, we could find the production of the sound. So, now the trachea, or otherwise called as windpipe. So, it is like a long tube, if you could see over here, extending from the larynx. The air is traveling down through the lungs. If you could observe the picture, it have the C-shaped cartilaginous strings. Why? It prevents the collapsing of the tubal breathing because of pressure differences. We knew pressure differences might create greater disastrous effects. A lot number of times in newspapers, televisions, we have heard the news, right? So, in order to prevent the collapsing, the trachea are having the C-shaped cartilaginous strings that will be keeping the tube open. Next, bronchi, the trachea entering into the lung, dividing, splitting into two bronchi, each leading to the lung. So further, it divides, gives the bronchioles. So we could see the bronchioles, the division, the bronchi bronchioles division will be within the lungs, which are the spongy elastic organs, which are occupying most of the chest cavity. So here I have a question for you. The right lung is slightly bigger than the left. Why do you think the right lung is slightly being bigger than the left? Think the left lung should accommodate heart. So do you think it should get sufficient space or space should be provided for the heart? Think of it, you will be getting to know the answer. So coming to the alveoli, the bronchiole, they have further branchings and they end up with tiny, sac-like structures. We are going to call it as air sacs. This will be looking like a bunch of grape. The bunch of grapes, the same thing, na? The alveoli is looking like the same. If you could observe the picture, the alveoli are lined up with one cell thick capillary. So from the alveoli to the capillary, there is a gaseous exchange through the process of diffusion. When we are inhaling, we have the oxygen rich air. Oxygen from the alveoli enters the capillaries. At the same time, capillaries have carbon dioxide rich air. Because of various metabolic activities, carbon dioxide which is getting produced within various cells, it is reaching to the capillaries. So from the capillary, the carbon dioxide will be getting eliminated out. So we can say alveoli are tiny balloon like air sacs which are being present at the end of the bronchioles where exactly the gaseous diffusion occurs. Okay, so what do alveoli do? They increase the surface area for the gaseous exchange. The same thing as I have told you, oxygen from the alveoli enter the capillary network. At the same time, the carbon dioxide from the capillary network enters through the alveoli. From the alveoli, again it will be getting eliminated out through the exhalation. And this process will be the gaseous exchange with respect to the alveolar capillary network. So now we are having other supporting parts of the respiratory system, which also includes the intercostal muscles, the rib cage and the diaphragm. Okay, give me a moment. Let me check if any question or let me pick a question. Okay, so where the gaseous exchange is occurring, this was the question. The answer to this is in the alveoli. The gaseous exchange process will be occurring in the alveoli region of the lungs. That only now we discussed so far. Now moving on, The respiratory system, the other supporting parts. Let's start with the intercostal muscles. They are found between the ribs. They help in expanding and contracting. Okay, between the ribs we can find the intercostal muscles. During inhalation, the intercostal muscles contract, because of which the ribs, they are moving upward and outward. So when the ribs move upward and outward, the volume of chest cavity increases or decreases? Increases, because of which there is a entry of oxygen rich air. During exhalation, the opposite happens. The intercostal muscles relax, because of which the ribs back to the normal position. The volume of chest cavity decreases and the air is getting pushed out of the lungs. So the rib cage, what does it do? The rib cage is also having additional supporting structure to the human respiratory system. It is protecting the lungs and the heart. Along with the intercostal muscles, it is giving the breathing, the inhalation, the exhalation. It is changing the volume of the chest cavity. So the dome-shaped diaphragm is also there over here. The diaphragm, it is a muscular sheet-like structure which is being present below the lungs. It is also being used for inhalation. So in the process of breathing, along with the intercostal muscles, for inhalation and exhalation to get carried on, for the continuous movement of the air in and out of the lungs, the diaphragm, the intercostal muscles, the rib cage, along with the continuous support of the human respiratory system, all together bring out the process of breathing, the inhalation plus the exhalation. So during inhalation, what happens to the diaphragm? The diaphragm is generally a dome shaped like this. Okay, the diaphragm contracts and it is moving downward, because of which the volume of the chest cavity is going to get increased and the lungs are expanding, getting filled with more amount of oxygen rich air. When we are exhaling, the diaphragm come back towards original position, the dome shaped again. Okay, so because of which the chest cavity space, the volume of the chest cavity is decreasing and it is forcing the air out of the lungs, means exhalation is happening over here. So there is inhalation plus there is a exhalation. Now coming to the process of breathing, what we have seen, inhalation plus exhalation, the one that we discussed earlier. The same thing I'm just repeating here. Inhalation is breathing in, means oxygen rich air. Exhalation is breathing out, what it corresponds for removing the carbon dioxide rich air. Okay, so in the breathing process, during the inhalation, observe the picture carefully. The intercostal muscles are getting pulled up. The ribs are moving upward and outward. The diaphragm is getting contracted. The dome shaped is contracted now, because of which the volume of chest cavity increases and the entry of oxygen rich air will be there. During the time of exhalation, the intercostal muscles are relaxing. The rib cage is coming to its original position again. The diaphragm is relaxing. The volume of chest cavity decreases and there is a exhalation of the carbon dioxide rich air. So in the breathing, inhalation and exhalation, we have seen what is happening now. Entry of oxygen rich air during inhalation, exit of carbon dioxide rich air during exhalation. This is what happening in case of inhalation and exhalation, the breathing process. So in inhalation, the same thing that I have explained, I have put in the point-wise manner. So the muscles between the ribs are pulling the rib cage upward and outward. What are these muscles? Intercostal muscles. And the diaphragm, which is a dome-shaped one, it is contracting, it is moving downward, the dome-shaped muscular diaphragm, because of which what happens, there is an increase in the space of the chest cavity, air is rushing in the lungs. So inhalation, the lungs are expanding and filling with fresh air, nothing but oxygen rich air. Now the reverse happen during exhalation. The rib cage is moving downward, coming back to its original position. It is moving downward and inward because the rib muscles are relaxing, the intercostal muscles are relaxing. The diaphragm, which is initially contracted, now goes back to its original position, dome shape. It returns to normal shape. There, exhalation happens because there is a decrease in the volume of the chest cavity. As a result, the carbon dioxide is getting pushed out of the lungs. So, because of decrease in the volume of the chest cavity, there is a exhalation. The carbon dioxide air is getting pushed out of the lungs. Okay. So, coming to the pathway of air, the same thing that I have told you earlier, the same I am repeating here once again. So, air is entering from nostrils to nasal cavity to pharynx and then larynx, followed by trachea, the bronchi, bronchioles, alveoli. Here, alveoli and blood capillary network is where exchange of gases occurring. So, from alveoli to capillaries, how the exchange of gases is occurring will be the exact question. If you could see, capillaries are one cell thick, alveoli are very thin, very delicate. Capillaries are having carbon dioxide rich blood. Alveoli, when we are inhaling, have oxygen rich blood. Now, through the process of diffusion, the oxygen from alveoli enters the capillaries. At the same time, the carbon dioxide concentration, since it is high in capillaries, now the carbon dioxide diffuses into the alveolar air sacs. From the alveoli, they get eliminated, they get exhaled. So, gaseous exchange happen in the alveoli, which are the tiny, tiny, teeny, tiny air sacs. They are like just like the grape bunches, right? Huh. So, the walls of alveoli are very thin and they are surrounded by a network of blood capillaries, which are one cell thick. The same thing in a sentence form I have just placed. The explanation that I have given, I have placed it in a sentence form. So the surfaces of capillary and alveolar, both of them are very thin. Gases now can easily pass through them, and majorly they are depending on the concept of diffusion, the movement of substances from a region of a higher concentration to a region of a lower concentration. So we could see the gaseous exchange with respect to the lungs, that is nothing but the alveolar part. Let's compare the gas, the percentage composition in inhaled air and exhaled air. So oxygen in inhaled air it is 21%, in exhaled air it is 16%. Carbon dioxide 0.03% in inhaled air, but in exhaled air it is high, 4.4%. That is making it carbon dioxide rich air. So nitrogen, since it is inert, it passes, it comes out the same 78%, no change in it. Okay, so students, I just wanted to pause for a while. I'll have some water and I'll be back. Okay, please stay tuned. So thank you so much for giving such a great moment. Let's move forward and let's try to see the gaseous exchange in the lungs. So after we are exhaling, sometimes when we exhale, there will be small amount of air which always remains inside the lungs. Can we call it something? Think of it. Can we call it anything? Can we give some name? Even after we are forcefully exhaling, there will be some small amount of air inside the lungs. So this is called as a residual volume. So what it does, it will be ensuring that there is an enough time for what? For exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide. Okay, so for the continuous exchange, there should be some time now. It should also get some time. So for some time to provide, we have the residual volume. Okay, so in large animals, do you think simple diffusion alone is enough? It is alone not enough, na? So we can say there is a presence of respiratory pigments to transport the oxygen. So the transport of gases will be the concept of discussion. Now, can you tell me what is the respiratory pigment? What is the pigment that is necessary for oxygen transport with respect to the humans? Think of it. Think. Okay. Meanwhile, think of it. Let me check if any question. Okay, larynx. A question about larynx. What does the larynx do? Larynx is also known as voice box. So what does the larynx do? It produces the sound. Whenever there is a passage of air into the larynx, there will be production of the sound. I hope the answer is clear. Yes, now let's get back. The body uses respiratory pigments to transport the oxygen. So in humans, what is the respiratory pigment? Hemoglobin being found in the RBC is nothing but the red blood cells is the respiratory pigment. And the hemoglobin, since it is having strong affinity towards the oxygen from lungs to different tissues of the body, there is a transporter of oxygen wherever the utilization is there. Wherever oxygen is being required, there will be transportation of this with the help of hemoglobin. Hemoglobin, the iron containing pigment present in the RBC. So carbon dioxide, it is a waste gas, right? So most of it is carried back. How? It is carried to the lungs being dissolved in the blood. Because in water it is more soluble when compared with that of oxygen. That is a simple reason behind this. So oxygen being absorbed into the lungs, now it is getting carried by the blood, the transportation system. During the inhalation and exhalation, there is an entry of oxygen rich air. Na? So the oxygen through the help of the hemoglobin, the respiratory pigment, it is getting distributed through each and every cell. This is how the transportation of gases is happening. So carbon dioxide at the same time, because of various cellular activities, carbon dioxide will be getting produced. So it is moving from the cells back into the blood, and from the blood it should reach where? Yeah, the capillary network. From the capillary network to the alveolar capillary network, the lungs. And there it should be eliminated or removed from the body. Yes, of course, this is happening with the process of exhalation. This is about the transportation of gases. Okay, so students, so far we have been understanding a lot number of concepts. Finally, we are at the end of today's discussion. I hope the concept is clear for you. Let me reiterate the points once again for you. We started with respiration. We understood about the process of breathing, the cellular respiration. What is ATP? Adenosine triphosphate. The usage of ATP. We have got the points. Glycolysis. Breakdown of 6 carbon compound into a 3 carbon compound, the pyruvate. Okay, then again the fate of pyruvate depends upon the presence or absence of oxygen. There we have seen the breakdown of glucose by various pathways, the anaerobic respiration, the aerobic respiration. Later on we understood respiration in plants and then animals. Majorly, we focused on the human respiratory system. The pathway of air will be the pathway of the air from uh, nostrils, nasal cavity, then pharynx, larynx, like that we have seen that. And then we have seen the gaseous exchange system in the lungs, the alveolar capillary network, followed by the transportation of the gases with the help of the pigment, the respiratory pigment, the hemoglobin. So this is all about today's discussion. I hope the concept is clear for you. So once again, I remind you, if you would like to have further more details, please do let us know within the comment box. Okay. Thank you so much everyone and have a great evening. Thank you and bye everyone.